Howdy everyone, it's me once again, the one and only Killerrodan. So this is going to be one of these videos I'm going to be posting on my original channel because as promised I want to be more frequent with these uploads, of course, just talk about various stuff. And yes, there's going to be talking about people being weird and not in a really interesting way, but more in the sense of just bizarre, like what the hell? Like what are you talking about? Kind of matter, just so absurd and just weird in the sense it's not even quirky weird either. But of course, one of the individuals I've spoke about quite often actually is of course Pastor Kevin Swanson. And he's this conservative whom seems to think that since the times are changing, and that some is for the worst. And he's one of these individuals that wants the pretty much the 1940s, 1950s version of America to come back because he believes that America has lost its way just for the fact that nowadays people are becoming more accepting with the gays and whatnot, and that somehow means that something's afoot. Yeah, homophobia. Christ, you think this kind of attitude would have just died eons ago, but unfortunately, no. Now, speaking of bigotry, fear of the foreigner. So, in this sermon I'm about to show, folks, and which I'm going to be talking about here, the basic idea here is that he's wondering where this country, I mean, as in the United States, is heading to, because, like I was saying a moment ago, things are changing too much. And his frame of reference is Japan. Of course, I mean, yes, Japan has been criticized for having the workload for the young people being way too much and whatnot, and the fact that the people in this generation, the millennials or younger, aren't having enough babies, yada yada yada. I mean, yeah, it's just pretty much a tradition for the Japanese to pretty much take on lots of work, pretty much work to death and whatnot. That has been a tradition for the Japanese for like forever. So that's nothing new. That is nothing new at all. But yes, there was a noticeable difference when it comes to birth rates compared to before the previous generation, and that somehow. Uh, so I mean, this is something I spoke about in a different video, folks. But for this one, I'm just using this as a quick recap because it's pretty much built upon on certain factors. Because for one, yes, the Japanese do behave and act different compared to the United States. Even though America is supposed to be just a cesspool of different, I guess, cultures, but even then, you can tell that they're different in a lot of ways, which in itself doesn't necessarily have to be a bad thing. Obviously, of course not. That's not what I'm getting at. What I'm trying to say is that Kevin Swanson believes the fact that they're different is somehow is a warning sign for everyone else. I guess in this case, the United States, because apparently it's a Christian nation, which it's not. Anyway, moreover, what I'm going to say is that he's trying to, I guess, how to say this, predict the future. How is Japan going to be in 2050? Yeah, he's trying to go that far ahead, and he's trying to use certain patterns currently and certain patterns from the past as a way to predict what's apparently going to happen to Japan at some point in the future, in a distant future, because apparently it's not looking good because of some ghost town or whatever and whatnot. Because I guess they're going extinct or something. I don't know. This is just a big confusing mess. If this sounds like all over the place, that's because it is. Could you just imagine if in the United in during World War II, if the Japanese had actually won, at least won in the sense of defeating America, at least in that sense, I mean. Because I know World War II, that's like a whole complicated mess right there, folks. There's like so many things going on simultaneously. There's like so many things intertwined and whatnot. So it's, oh boy, if this entire thing sounds incredibly bizarre, that's because it is. And just could you imagine if they actually won, at least against the fight against the United States anyway. But I know Kevin Swanson would have been pissed off. But what I'm saying is that Kevin Swanson is definitely, he's doing what you call it, the cliche, generic, typical, I'm a victim, 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 I'm a victim, I'm a victim, kind of complex. And yeah, I'm getting to it, folks. I'm getting to the podcast or sermon, whatever you want to call it, because it's going to be a long one. So thanks anybody ahead of time for watching. And yes, I will post Link down below for my second channel where I'll be talking about movie reviews and such, and of course a link down below for Air Force as well. If anyone's interested in seeing more gameplay, if that's your cup of tea. But anyway, for pretty much the entire thing, I can pretty much summarize like that. I'm a victim. I'm a victim. I'm a poor me, poor little me. Oh, woe is me, and whatnot. That's like the entire thing. I'm pretty much what I'm saying. I'm overly simplifying it, obviously, but I'm just saying here. All right, I guess yada 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 blah blah. Let's just get into it because, like I said, this is gonna be a long video. So again, thank you anybody for watching. Check out my second channel and check it out as well. The links for that will be posted down below. So without further ado, let's just get into this nonsense, this bullshit, and just get it over with because it's all kinds of crazy. Holy shit! With that being said, let's get into it. Oh boy.
This is Generations. My name is Kevin Swanson, Bill Jack from World G Academy with us now, and here's one of the most interesting stories from Japan. Now, Japan is interesting to me because I was raised there in the 1970s. A missionary kid on the southern island of Kyushu, and this article is phenomenal from CNN. I don't normally say that about CNN.
I know he was born during the 1970s. That I knew because he's what, Gen X, but he's how do I say this? He's pretty much feeling nostalgic for a generation that came out before him. That seems weird to me. But anyway, that aside, he says he was raised in Japan. I call bullshit on that because not once, I've spoken about this guy for a number of years by this point. Like I was saying earlier, he's one of the most talked about pastors on either channel. I've spoken about this guy a number of times, and I do mean a number of times. Not once he talked about the school system. Not once he spoke about the culture. Well, at least not in a positive light anyway. Like that wouldn't matter anyway because you could have done that even if you were born in his country. You could talk about negatively or positively about some of his culture. You don't necessarily have to be born and raised in that culture. Point being, what I'm saying is that he was never specific on the details. We'll talk about how the housing was in from whatnot. Because, for example, as much as like Japan, there is a bit of criticism towards them because they're not too kind toward foreigners, at least a good chunk of them anyway. Because, okay, for an example, let's say you want to go to a bar, okay? You want to go to a bar, the best bar in, at least maybe not in the country, but at least in the best bar in the location that you're in, whatever that may be. Some of them might send you off to like the shittiest, more rinky-dink bar you can find. You might do that intentionally just because you're a foreigner. Again, some of them would. And when it comes to rental, let's say he never said did he live in a rental house or he did own it or his parents. I don't know. Again, he never specified those kind of things. A lot of this was very vague. But that aside, when it comes to rental, again, it's not that it's impossible for a foreigner to live in Japan because they technically can. It's just going to be a lot more difficult. Whether it's going to be rental or to own, it's going to be a lot more difficult to do that. He has never specified this kind of experience like at all. Again, what I'm trying to say is way too vague. Well, I am maybe vague to some extent, but I'm trying to give some specific examples. I'm saying. All right. Anyway.
But Japan, let's just say this from the outset, Japan's been ruined. Not by the World War II, but Japan's been ruined by the wrong worldviews.
Yeah, it's the after.
Right, you're already lying. But then again, you already kind of war anyway. But anyway, yes, World War II did ruin the nation in a lot of ways. It did really ruin it. Why do you think they had to pretty much rebuild the entire thing? Because of the fucking nuke and whatnot. And, okay, I'm not going to read beyond that whole nuke thing too much because is that just like a whole morality behind it should have been dropped, shouldn't have it. Some people looked at it, they shouldn't have. Some people say they should have. And some people are more in the gray. They're like in between that. They shouldn't, and whatnot. I'm not going to go into that too much really because it's like a whole thing I should discuss. But yes. But yeah, basically, long story short is that the reason that Japan the way it is now is because they got their asses handed to them pretty much towards the end of World War II. I mean, did they put up a good fight? They absolutely did. I'm not taking that away from them. Okay, they put up a good fight. They absolutely did. It's just that's what did them in. How much further would have they gone without the bomb being dropped? Excuse me, Nook. How much more will they last? Otherwise, I don't know. This is up for debate. But they did get pretty much really arrogant about it, like, "Ha, I'm strong," la la la. But anyway, he basically, I know I'm rambling on a little much here, but basically, Kevin Swanson is acting as if what did the country, what did it in, what ruined the country really is the world view. It's not a Christian view, but the world view is what ruined the country. So, in other words, he's acting as if the Christian point of view would have saved it. Now it's going to be doomed otherwise. Just this sounds incredibly racist. This is so racist. And I mean, he's not saying he's flat out saying that he hates the Japanese because he's saying it out loud like that would get him a lot of trouble. I mean, he admitted he already got a lot of death threats for emails with a high doubt, but whatever, because he the victim complex. But he's saying he does not like the culture in an indirect manner. Is what I'm saying. Anyway.
World War II. It is, actually. Yeah, things really came apart in the 1950s and 60s. People are going to say, oh, no, wait a minute. They did very...
No, it fucking didn't. That's a goddamn lie right there. I mean, they pretty much had to, when I say they, I mean, referring to the Japanese, they pretty much had to rebuild the entire country because, again, World War II. And, I mean, during the 1940s and 50s, yeah, I mean, yes, they did had some assistance with the Americans to rebuild everything, obviously, but there's like a whole story behind that, which I kind of don't feel like getting into because because I mean, but point being is that yes, they received a lot of help from assistance financially and whatnot from the United States because there was like a whole thing with that. I mean, during the 1980s, I'm going to skip a several years, or many years, I should say. Yeah, I mean, yes, with capitalism, they pretty much were neck to neck with the Americans, with the USA. Well, not quite beating them, but dangerously close. But because of all these fancy gadgets and whatnot, well, fancy at the time anyway. And their comedy at the time was extremely booming. And yes, ironically enough, it was because of what had occurred during World War II, which yes was kind of funny in the sense that there's a sense of irony because otherwise this probably wouldn't have happened at all. But yes, yeah, that's an actual thing, folks. The United States did play a significant role in Japan's reconstruction following World War II. After Japan's defeat in 1945, the country faced devastation, obviously, from the war, including widespread destruction of infrastructure, industry, and cities, as well as significant economic challenges, of course. The United States military, under the leadership of this General Douglas Arthur, if I remember correctly, excuse me if I butcher his name, the Supreme Commander, I guess, oversaw the occupation of Japan from 1945 to 1952. During this time, several key components were, of course, implemented in aid of Japan. So, excuse me if I, again, just trying to get to the point here because there's a lot to speak about here. Anyway, the thing is that aid at the time, the United States provided financial assistance through programs such as the Doug Douglas Plan. Again, excuse me if I put that, which aimed to the economic stabilization. I mean, and later throughout the Marshall Plan, which was more commonly associated with European reconstruction, but also benefits Japan in several different ways. But obviously, okay, one of the more obvious things is that, of course, it's the political reform because it, Japan was not a capitalist at first, not originally, but it eventually became that afterward. The occupation authorities instilled democracy reforms, including drafting a new constitution that granted civil rights, among other things, when it comes to universal things, like how it is in America and in the United States for Japan as well. Kind of have like a partnership system of government, so to speak, so you have like more voting power, so to speak, I guess, and at least more of a democracy kind of a thing compared to how it was before, because was more of an imperial state at first, kind of a thing. But of course, that changed, as I said. Anyway, so land reform, there's a whole land reform thing because the U.S., the United States of America, pretty much engaged land reform that aimed to break up large estates and distribute land to, I guess, farmers and whatnot, which helped to modernize China's agriculture, if I'm pronouncing that right. So again, pardon me if I'm pushing that. But anyway, that was the whole thing with the infrastructure policy. The United States supported the rebuilding of Japan's infrastructure base and, of course, encouraged the development of certain factors, of course, such as this electronics and, of course, cars and other type of automobiles. This led Japan to become an economic powerhouse in the final decades, as in, aka the 1980s, what I just said a moment ago. Because, of course, it's the whole thing with the culture change and education. There were efforts to promote the understanding between the two nations, including the cultural changes and of course, the educational programs, of course, such as English-based training, which is technically a lot of ways an American could go have a job there. But again, if I had to criticize the country for anything, it's usually just for English teaching teachers. And if you want to get another job as an American over there, it's quite difficult. So again, if I had to give them any actual genuine criticism, by the way, but I like the country, but it's not exactly above criticism. I'm getting at is what I'm getting at. Anyway, but by the end of the occupied 1952, Japan had transformed into a stable and prosperous. The American country eventually and pretty much become as one of the largest leading economics. So there you go. Which again is a bit ironic considering the fact that World War II had to happen in order for this to occur. Something good, something great out of something bad. So more you know.
Well, technologically, materially, financially, economically, actually, they've been doing terrible since the early 1990s. As I
Again, what the hell are you even talking about? That's a flat out lie. Other we're having trouble in the 90s. Since when? What specifically are you talking about? Do you mean like they were stagnating? What? Again, yes, in addition to the immunotics aid and political refinement previously mentioned, several key factors that were became very important that pretty much contributed to Japan's reconstruction and the assistance during after World War II, I should say, was the whole military and security alliance because the United States and America signed the Japan-U.S. Security Treaty in 1951, which allowed the United States to pretty much maintain the military bases in Japan in exchange for a commit to defend Japan in case of an attack, if something were to happen to them, I guess. This treaty pretty much helped to ensure Japan's security during early Cold War years, allowing it to focus on the economic recovery without worrying too much about the excessive worry of military threats. I mean, of course, those the technical support and trade. Of course, the United States factored technology transfer and trade agreements that help Japan access to American technology and, of course, the markets as well. This included support in these kinds of in this industries like manufactureship, which of course was crucial for Japan and post-war growth because they desperately needed. Anything about it. And then there's the whole thing of promotion for labor rights and education, because again, the political and economics and whatnot has pretty much changed after the fact. The authorities promoted labor rights, and of course, they encouraged the foundation of labor unions, which of course constituted the fair labor practices. Furthermore, educational reform as well, aimed at improving certain rates, of course, and obviously the laboring workforce, what that was pretty much aimed to modernize the industry in a lot of ways. That became a priority. One more thing is that, to be perfectly clear here, all right, both eras of Japan, the pre-war and post-war era of Japan, eras, I should say, neither liked the communists either, folks. Nor did the United States. So it's not the fact that if Japan and America were going at it, I guess America liked communists, which they did. So don't get that twisted. Neither sides liked the communists, of course, they didn't. It's just that they were keeping disagreeing with towards each other because of some political things, disagreements at the time, of course. Because there was like a large number of factors that led to World War II. It was not just one simple thing. It was like multiple factors that led to World War II, of course, obviously. Again, to be perfectly clear here, I already felt that this is already dragging out. It's already dragging out than it should be, but ugh. Anyway, how to correct so much here? Christ almighty. But point being is that don't be thinking that United States and Russia were being buddy-buddy. I don't know, they were kind of truths maybe. Maybe at most it was just that. But don't be thinking that they were kind of like they were each other's best pals, up patching the back, blah blah blah. It was not that, okay? It was not. They were just doing this out of convenience, really. Because even if you're a powerful nation with strong military might, even then there's only so much you can do. You can be the most powerful nation in the entire goddamn world, but even then there's only so much you can do military wise. I'm saying. Maybe they were able to take the United States. Maybe they were able to take down Russia at the time. Maybe they would have, but they were just too busy doing other things at the time. I mean, that's again over simplifying it, sure, but I'm just saying because that alone, there's like so much history on that alone, right there. When you think about it, but I just wanted that perfectly clear. They're not friends, and they never were friends at all.
Right after World War II, they adopted our economic system.
Yeah.
Because they recognized they were conquered. So we must be superior. So they adopted the economic system, and they outdid us. When I was a kid, it was a joke if you got a toy and it was made in Japan. It was considered really cheap. And then remember in the Back to the Future, the best things during that movie that came out of Japan because they started.
Wait, what? So okay, let me get this straight. So you're using the Back to the Future movies as evidence for your claim. Technology rise, Japan was doing great. I mean, yes, a lot of people agree on you on that. Technology wise, yes, the Japanese has been doing phenomenal on that. And yes, like I said, a lot of people will actually agree with you on that, and so will I. That doesn't mean you're in the right here. He's trying to act as if that they were too focused on technology than being and focusing on the family and having kids and whatnot. That's what he's trying to get at. They're too focused on that, not having enough babies, not enough kids, because he's trying to act as if he wants them to be prepared for the future. At least their kids anyway. Their kids, and their kids, and then their kids, and their kids, and the kids after that. But he's saying that he's not. They're not. They're not looking for the future. They're too focused on the here and now, and too much in the short term and not in the long term. Because apparently, the Back to the Future, that's it. Like the best technology stuff, the best cars, the best TV, the best computer, the best everything is coming from Japan, and they're not focusing on having family. And apparently, according to this guy, to be saved, they must be Christian. So they're not Christianing enough, really, according to Kevin Swanson. Again, where is he getting this from exactly? I don't even know.
The highest quality. They started low and they excelled in manufacturing because they adopted our system.
They adopted some of our quality standards.
What didn't they adopt?
Well, they adopted our quality standards from William Deming, one of the key total quality control guys from the 1970s and 80s. They adopted our materialism. They adopted our worldview of existentialism, live for today, forget about tomorrow type of worldview.
So, okay, again, you're completely wrong. Complaining, pretty much claiming that the salvation or improvement on a country is such as Japan, it just really hinges solely on adapting a particular region. I guess in this case, uh, conservative Christianity is just indeed a view that can be considered overly simplistic and and yes, misleading. He's claiming that again the Japanese are too into their materials like TVs or whatever else, any kind of electronics, which of course is a lie. I mean, yes, the Japanese do have their own belief system, of course, but it's more like in a different way. They do believe in spirits. They do believe in like well, a good chunk of them anyway. Believe like demons and all that. Like many countries around the world, they have their own philosophies when it comes to like different kind of belief system. It's not it's not like they don't, okay, because they do. Or at least a good chunk of them. I mean, there are Japanese atheists, of course, that don't accept any of this, of course. But again, he's picturing this in a way too simplistic, and it's obviously misleading. There's many factors that could go into a nation's dilemma, progress, and of course resistance and improvements and all that when it comes to policies for the social structure, educational system, culture views, and whatnot, and international relations. Of course, yes, Japan has its own spiritual traditions, which they do. One of which being Buddhism. It's not just Buddhism, but it's one of, I guess, several. I guess the coexistence of several belief systems to the nation's identity and social fabric. Because Japan has more than one belief system, quite a few of them actually, but they coexist in a peaceful way. Having this, of course, this diverged heritage, of course, and whatnot, and successful history and whatnot when it comes to Japan's post-war to reconstruction and economic successes, where the war succeeded through, of course, a combined of number of different factors, which, of course, Kevin Swanson is completely ignoring. But what I'm getting at, Kevin Swanson over here, he does not like the fact that I mean, there's a place for Japan too and America because America is not just one belief system, even though Kevin Swanson believe it is. But it's not though. But anyway, he's getting mad at the fact that Japan has more of a circular, I mean, yeah, more of a circular political rise. I mean, you could be a Republican and you can become a liberal in Japan. It's not that you can't. Okay, you can be a Republican or whatever else in Japan. You absolutely can, and you can do the same thing here, despite what Kevin Swanson says. But anyway, it's just Japan, the political system in Japan and the government has a circular society, which he does not like because the whole thing he made a claim much earlier saying that is that world view is what ruining Japan when in reality that's not the case at all. What doesn't have a circular society is communist Cuba and communist Venezuela. So yeah, is that what you want, Kevin Swanson? This is so confusing. But the weird part, Kevin Swanson, he's against communism. So it just seems kind of odd when you think about it.
And now their birth implosion is the worst in the world. This is from CNN. When Kentaro Yokobori was born almost 7 years ago, he was the first newborn in the Sugoi district of Kawakami village in 25 years. First guy. First child to be born in 25 years.
Wow.
His birth was like a miracle for the...
That's completely made up. I mean, seriously, where are you getting this information from anyway? Like, where? Even if, hypothetically speaking, even if he did live in that country, which, again, like I said earlier, I highly doubt that he did. Even if then, that still doesn't mean you have access to every bit of information in the country at all times, at your fingertips. So where are you getting this from exactly? I don't even know. Okay.
Well-wishers visited his parents, Miho and Hirohito, for more than a week, nearly all of them senior citizens, including some who could barely walk. So they all showed up. 25 years, haven't had a child.
Wow.
Finally, a child shows up in this village. The elderly people were very happy to see Kentaro, and an elderly lady who had difficulty climbing the stairs with her cane came to me to hold my baby in her arms. All the elderly people took turns holding my baby, Miho recalled. During that quarter century, without a newborn, the village population shrank by more than half to just 1,150, down from 6,000 as recently as 40 years ago. So now think about this, moving from 6,000 down to 1,150. This is what birth implosions are looking like and will look like in America and Europe, in at least 80 nations around the world, Russia certainly, China as well. This is what the world will look like in 60, 70 years from now. Japan is...
I still don't know where you're getting this information from. If what you're saying is true, then present the stats. How is that you're the only one that has this information? Why haven't you brought it to the news station and whatnot? So, why don't you try to help them out instead of just shitting on them? I mean, seriously.
Ahead of the rest. So, friends, I think you just need to understand. Prime Minister Fumio Kishida told a recent press conference, time is running out to procreate. Amid a flood of disconcerting demographic data, he warned earlier this year.
You made that up. You clearly made that up. There's literally no data to back this up whatsoever. Like, none of this is actually coherent in any shape or form at all. So again, where are you getting this information from exactly? I'd say from shitting out your ass. That's clearly what you're doing here. This is in some basis assumption that the Japanese are evil just because of the fact that they're Japanese. That's it, really. And he's saying this indirectly, of course, when you think about it.
The country was on the brink of not being able to maintain social functions.
And how? How exactly? You still have not explained anything, like at all. But okay.
That's how serious it is for the country of Japan. The country saw 799,728 births in 2022. That's 800,000 births in 2022.
Again, where's this information getting from? I mean, technically speaking, while they do have a low birth rate, but that still doesn't mean he has a point.
Lowest number on record, and barely more than half of 1.5 million births it registered in 1982. So,
okay, again, you clearly not making any sense. Like, where is this information coming from?
Half of the births that they got in 1982. It's fertility rate. That is Japan's fertility rate.
This entire thing is just a logical fallacy because he's trying to act as if that's something that might be partly true and trying to use this as a way to prove what he's trying to say here. Okay, I was letting that play for a bit there because he just goes on to what I was just saying earlier. Make the babies, 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 and make the babies, make the babies, make babies, make babies, make babies, make babies, and yeah, if anything, he's having this power trip pretty much. Again, I already knew that it was going to come out to this because a lot of these Christians pretty much view women nothing more than this baby factory. I mean, if a woman wants to pump out babies like crazy, that's on her, but she shouldn't be forced upon her. I mean, there are people out there that do have some kind of breeding fetish. I mean, to each their own, I guess. And so, but I'm okay. Just to be perfectly clear, okay, folks. If somebody out there has a thing for being pregnant or getting someone pregnant, whomever that may be, if that's your kink, and if that's your partner's kink, that's fine, okay. That's fine, but it has to be with consent, okay. It should not be forced upon you. To make this perfectly clear, I'm just disagreeing on what Kevin Swanson is saying on how to approach this kind of thing. But again, I keep rehammering the same thing again here, is that he's acting as if he's trying to use the Japan as a warning thing because he pretty much thinks Japan is doomed. The goose is cooked. Well, how are we going to phrase that? Because he's trying to use Japan as a warning to the United States because he's trying to use that as a warning to the fact that he's trying to tell Americans. You see what happened if you're not Christian. See what happens when you're not Christian enough. It'll be doomsday. So make babies. Okay, if it wasn't obvious enough, it's a red herring. That's what I'm saying. This is a red herring logical fallacy, which of course, in this way, has been used in a manipulative manner. He's trying to get his point of view across because apparently the Japanese are being too shallow. Because the only way to have any real depth in your life is to be a Christian, which of course is not.
Fallen to 1.3, far below the 2.1 required to maintain a stable population. As I understand it, South Korea is probably the only one worse. I think they're pushing 0.9. Wow. Korea is just awful. So here we're finding that the existentialistic, materialistic worldview that we have exported to Japan, to South Korea and these other countries where there's been something of a free market operating, but the materialistic, existentialistic worldview has made its inroads. We are destroying these nations faster than we are.
This is literally coming right the fuck out of nowhere. Again, where I get this information from exactly? Seriously, what?
with something of a Christian heritage. The problem with South Korea and Japan is they didn't have a long-standing 1,000-year Christian heritage.
Funny how he didn't dictate anything about the Asian countries that were communist. He went after those, specifically those of capitalists, which is contradictory to his belief system that he claims to be for capitalism, which is the exact opposite. It's capitalism in name only, I guess, when you think about it, because he really wants dictatorship. I mean, yes, this simply undermines their own traditions. This is simply as very oversimplifying their own heritage. I mean, it doesn't matter if it's Korean or Japanese, either and or. There's like so much to talk. Their heritage is so rich, and folks, there's so much to talk about. He's really oversimplifying it.
It takes us a little longer to bring out the jackhammers and break down the foundations that have been established.
Again, all you're trying to do is erase somebody else's culture. You're trying to make as if their culture is not important. You're acting as if your culture is far more important than the other. Their culture should be completely annihilated. When I say they, I mean the Japanese, of course. Their culture should be completely eradicated, so to speak, because it's not as good as yours because you believe in God. It is so mind-blowingly racist. It is very racist.
In the Western world for 1,000 years, but not so much in Japan, South Korea, China, elsewhere around the world, in which they had almost none of this Christian heritage.
Again, what the hell are you talking about? America is not a Christian nation and never was, never should be a Christian nation. What you're coming off as is just a damn dictatorship. That's what this is. This is so stupid. It is so dumb. But anyway.
Japan was the first nation, guys. Listen to this. You'll get this in Epoch, The Rise and Fall of the West, if you want to know what's going on in the world.
Oh, are you fucking serious, mate? Yes, he's acting as if the modern day era of America is already falling as he speaks. And he's trying to reach as many people as possible so they can believe in God. Not just any God, it has to be his branch of Christianity. The arrogance in this guy. Mind you, he's the type of guy, and he actually said this himself, by the way, that a criticism towards God is a criticism towards him is a criticism towards God. Yeah, the arrogance in this guy. You can even look at that up yourself if you want. But anyway, he's acting as if he's going to be the Lord and Savior towards the Japanese. He's put himself superior to the Japanese, and he's trying to do is just help them out, apparently. He's trying to act as if he's the savior of all people. Mad arrogance, this guy. Oh my god. I mean, this is not surprising. Like I told you before, like I said before, folks. I've spoken about this guy before multiple times. Yeah, it does go along with the thinking that he did before. I'm just trying to help you. I'm just trying to save you from sin, from Satan's grasp. So you're telling me that the country of Japan is doomed because they're not following your branch of Christianity? That doesn't make any sense whatsoever, like at all. But anyway, this is ridiculous. It's really ridiculous. It has nothing to do with any of that at all.
And you want to understand the trends that have affected the Western world and every other nation around the world. Japan was the first nation to adopt Margaret Sanger's agenda, hook, line, and sinker, in the 1940s and 1950s. She actually took a trip over there, I'm going to say in the 1930s.
Well, of course you're going to have an issue with women. Of course, I'm not surprised, which he does. He acts like he doesn't, but he really does. But, I mean, yes, there are all bad women out there. Don't get me wrong. There are terrible women out there. Serial killers, murderers, you name it. Yeah, there are. There's even... it's everywhere. There are a lot of female bad women out there. There are. They're everywhere, okay? Killers and whatnot. I'm not denying that. Same thing with men. There's plenty of women and men who are terrible out there. I'm not denying that, okay? But anyway, moreover is that he's acting as if just because there's a few bad women out there, he's going to blame the entire group. I mean, are there bad single women? Yes. But there are also good single women who are not being helped by their husband because maybe the husband is a cheating bastard. I don't know. But for whatever the reason is, she's out there, whoever this woman is out there, wants to do, I guess, whole thing, trying to help her family. Sometimes that's the case when you think about it.
And Japan is going to pay very dearly for this.
That sounds like a fucking threat right there, which I guess it is. Yeah, that's straight up asshole when you think about it. But anyway, yeah, that's the thing though. He really wants to go on the idea that He has the way, he has the path to righteousness, he has the way to help the Japanese to basically go in the right path. Even though he's acting as if the country is doomed already as it is. And yeah, I mean, yes, this entire thing just really hinges on the make a baby, 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 and make a baby. It's really hinged on that, really, in a lot of ways. This entire thing, this entire rant of his, it just hinges on the Japanese making babies and making babies. Because a lot of the Christians just, I feel like I'm repeating myself here. Because I'm regurgitating the same goddamn thing over and over again. Because that's what it is here, really. But anyway, yes, he's really going on the fact that Japanese should be more fruitful and multiply because he views people, human beings, the human race, as superior than everything else. Again, the arrogance on this guy.
Due to the influence of Margaret Sanger, Japan eagerly adopted the very racist and nasty eugenics protection law in 1948. Therefore, Japan quickly gained the unenviable position of claiming the highest abortion rate in the world.
Of course, we keep saying subject matters. I don't know what abortion has to do with anything, but okay, whatever. Anyway, abortion, it was not a creation by the Japanese, if that's what you're getting at. Is that what you mean? The Japanese created that? I'm confused here. I don't see what this has to do with anything. Okay. No one is really sure who did the first abortion. Okay, who was that? Who started this whole thing of the? I don't know. That's kind of besides the point because ultimately he wants to control women. Whether you think abortion is wrong or right, at the end of the day, it's all about controlling women. That's it. That's literally he's want to control women. Whether or not abortion is morally right or wrong, well, maybe somewhere in the middle, it doesn't matter. It doesn't matter. It doesn't matter. It doesn't matter. Because ultimately, what Kevin Swanson wants is to control women. That's all he fucking wants to do is just control, make sure he controls women, of course. That's all I think ultimately what he wants to do at the end of the day. It's ridiculous. It's very ridiculous when you think about it because he believes that his path to Christianity, well, his version of it anyway, is the absolutely only way to achieve righteousness, the Holy Land, so to speak, which makes no sense. But what makes you so sure about it?
By 1955. By 1955, get this. By 1955, get this, Margaret Sanger's agenda had been fully implemented. In Japan, by 1955, 55% of Japanese babies were aborted. That's over half of Japanese babies were aborted. And that's why Japan is the pioneering nation to destroy itself, to destroy its social fabric, and to eventually open itself up to being taken over by China, a much more populated nation.
Okay, who is this woman and what does she have to do with anything? I don't get it. What does anything have to do with anything? I mean, I've criticized these individuals before, not just Kevin Swanson, but on numerous of other religious people. They seem to have this common pattern. They seem to bring up like 50 different things all at the same time that's not even connected to said topic. What does any of this have to do with anything at all? I'm so confused to all this. Like, why? Why does this have to be a thing? Okay, that aside, I mean, what agenda? Whose agenda? Who's doing what exactly? This video is almost over, folks. So thank you for anybody for watching ahead of time. Again, if you're watching this, I do appreciate it. Thank you so much. I really do appreciate this, of course. It's just ridiculous that people like this has this mindset because they seem to know that, oh, this is the proper way of life. Again, it oversimplifies their culture. It actually as if that their culture is nothing. Their culture means nothing. The only way their culture can have its weight in salt if it's Christian. So basically, like I was saying, regarding the same goddamn thing again and again and again in this video. He wants to erase their culture and replace it with his culture. Even though he's claiming that the atheists, the LGBT plus community, the liberal, the Democrats, even though he's acting as if people like this, just basically anyone who disagrees with him, it could be other Christians, it could be other branches of Christianity, just literally anybody, anyone who disagrees with him, he's acting as if these group of people are trying to control and erase his culture just because he's acting like he's the victim. Victim of what? Stupidity, maybe? But other than that, I don't know. How is he the victim exactly? I have no idea. It's just really bizarre when you think about it, but okay, whatever.
China will go after Taiwan first, then after Japan, and these nations that...
Again, you are oversimplifying this complex situation. Again. I mean, okay, because when it comes to China and Taiwan, yeah, they have a bit of a situation. Again, I mean, of course, more specifically, the communist side of China versus Taiwan, to be a bit more specific here, because Taiwan wants their own thing going on. Of course, I think for anything, for like any additional updates and whatnot, I guess it's somewhat recent, but even though you can actually trace this back for quite some time, even because there was like a situation between Japan and Taiwan during World War II. If you want to get down to it, of course. I mean, if a lot of this feels like it's connected, which to some extent it is, of course. But okay. But anyway, yeah, there's a situation between these two places because Taiwan considers itself more of its own state in some ways with its own government and economy, and of course, which is fine. Of course, its own demonic I said that word funny. Diplomacy, election, democracy, kind of a thing. However, the People's Republic of China, the communist side, viewed Taiwan as a part of its territory and consistently assessed it that it seeks its own thing, so to speak. Right? He's trying to have its own thing, but have it be done by force. Which is pretty fucked up because there are a bunch of communists, of course, and whatnot. I mean, yes, there's a lot more to this, obviously, of course. But there was quite I guess, several key moments when it comes to this dilemma, of course. There's the military tensions because China has increased its military presence around Taiwan, including conducting military exercises and sending aircraft into Taiwan's airspace defense, of course, into a diversification zone for quite some time. This has been raising some concerns when it comes to politics and its allies, of course, when it comes to Taiwan and whatnot. Another thing I want to bring up real brief is that the when it comes to the international relations, Taiwan has sought out to make a strength in its international presence and of course relationships, especially with countries like the United States, obviously. Because the thing is that the United States continues to support Taiwan because Taiwan is a communist, of course, as if that wasn't obvious enough, and as of course as they should through arms sales and use some kind of diplomatic relations to whatever extent it can anyway. Despite not having formal I guess demonic diplomacy. I guess more formally. I mean, more formal. I guess you can say if that's the proper way of saying it. But when it comes to domestic politics in Thailand, of course, Taiwan's political landscape is divided. Of course, with the Progressive Party and favoring a more, I guess, assertive stance on independence and close its ties to the friends of the USA, while a certain aspect of this wants to have its I guess traditional favor when it gave him with China. So it's like that alone is a complicated mess, of course, because of the moronic communists, of course. I mean, yes, there's also the international support of organizations because Taiwan has been gaining some kind of support from various nations, of course, and has been partaken in international organizations under different names, although it remains a certain way isolated due to the pressures from China, of course. So yes, it's not going to be as easy as it seems. Just because America is helping them out, at least to whatever extent, that doesn't mean it's going to be easy peasy lemon squeezy. It's still a lot more complicated. Real life is a lot more, of course, messy than you might think, folks. It's not just one easy fix. Maybe in some cases, maybe it can be, but I wish that could be applied for everything. But Moreover, because of course there going to be some public opinions in Taiwan, it may be general vary, of course, from what people who support communists or at least communist sympathizers. Of course, communist sympathizers aren't necessarily communists; they've been sympathetic towards them, is what I'm saying. I mean, either way is idiotic. Of course, either way is idiotic. But the the core thing I'm trying to get at here is that it's complicated. Okay, it's very complicated here. I mean, there's a whole lot I could get into because there's the whole thing back in World War II in Japan and Taiwan. There's like a whole thing where right there, obviously, there's like a whole thing with that. There's so much to do with that. Because again, I'm gonna be somewhat brief here, somewhat, of course. But anyway, during World War II, yes, Taiwan was under the Japanese rule, if I remember correctly, which had began in 1895. Again, if I remember correctly, when it comes to the first uh, Shinyo Japanese War, which of course has its own entire history behind that. Obviously, of course, the island remained as a Japanese colony until the end of World War II in 1945. So, I mean, there's this whole thing. We can talk about that as well, of course, if I wanted to, because since the Japanese colonization after pretty much doing their thing in Japan, of course, and whatnot, Japan did a thing over there because Taiwan had underwent some significant changes when it comes to this infrastructure development, modernization at the time, and of course, when it comes to I guess having these factory jobs and whatnot, the Japanese Imperial Army did a thing over there. Of course, it did number of policies aimed at when it comes to I guess having their own rules, so to speak. When it comes to the Taiwanese population, into the Japanese culture, having my way or the highway kind of attitude to some extent. There's also the element when it comes to the market, when it comes to coming jobs and stuff like that under the Japanese world. Taiwan's comedy was, of course, transformed into something else because of the Japanese element, the island's agriculture, of course, and the factories, and of course the whole thing with the expansive land reform, of course, and this, of course, obviously had an impact on comedy development that was laid the groundwork for Taiwan's later industrial axis success to some extent. There was the military rule. Of course, as the war progressed, Taiwan became an important, I guess, military asset for the Japanese. The island served as a basis for the Japanese military, supplied troops and resources for and support the Japanese war efforts in the Pacific. Forced labor, of course, mean the Taiwanese individuals were, of course, forced into the Japanese army, or at least had, I guess, employed as laborers to whatever extent in support of the Japanese war machine efforts. Some of the, of course, were forced upon the harsh conditions, of course, and whatnot. Then there was the whole resistance. While there were, of course, some kind of resistance against the Japanese rule, such as some kind of incident in 1930 and whatnot. But like I said, I could go on and on. There's like so much he's dismissing here. There's like a whole lot here. There's a whole history behind this. Again, he's looking through Kevin Swanson is looking through this through a black and white lens, which of course in itself can be considered as a logical fallacy. He's really over simplifying this entire thing as if there wasn't obvious enough because you have to be Christian or you're bad. You're either Christian or you're bad. That's about it. But his version of Christianity. Again, there's more I can get into this too, but this video is almost an hour long as it is.
Have bought into the Western corrupted worldview that is such a capacity to destroy nations. Friends, I'm telling you, the most dangerous worldview in the world is not Hinduism. It's not Buddhism. You see, what is it? It's what is taught in American public schools and presented in American media and culture.
Again, you're not really explaining anything. The relationship between, of course, Taiwan and the United States have been pretty much, I guess, changed over the decades, I guess. Definitely since the end of World War II, obviously, and the Chinese Civil War Act. I mean, fight, I should say. Chinese Civil War kind of thing. I mean, yeah, so there's a lot of key components you really get into here, folks, because a lot of things had changed politically. Even from 2000, I'm through 2025. There's a lot of things that have changed. Of course, he keeps glancing over a lot of shit.
It's the culture that is destroying these countries around the world. It's deadly. It's toxic. It's undermining entire nations. It's the existentialism. It's the socialism. It's the birth control, abortion, pro-homosexual, breakdown of the nuclear family, not just in America, but other nations around the world. This is what is destroying Japan. This is what is destroying South Korea. This is what is destroying the world.
Oh, okay. Again, we keep changing subject matter here. Uh, supporting communism is not the same thing as supporting the women's rights to having an abortion. Is not the same thing for being a part of the LGBT community for whatever extent. I mean, having the gay people be these so-called communists, that's like a whole entire history video if you want to talk about that. That's the, being pro-gay is not the same as being a communist. That's not the same. Even being pro-woman is not communist. I've heard this before, but it's not the same thing at all.
Right now. So again, it won't surprise me if Japan is taken over by China within the next 20 years. Wouldn't surprise me one little bit. China has its problems, but remember, it's still 10 to 15 times larger than Japan, population-wise. Well, let's talk about what's happening in America next. On Generations, this is Kevin Swanson.
Okay, that's well. I mean, this section anyway is over. I mean, Kevin Swanson also did another thing with Social Security, of course, which I don't really want to cover because again, this video is very lengthy as it is. So it's almost an hour. It's barely under an hour. So anyway, thanks very much for watching. There's like a whole lot more I could have just get into, which I probably should have. I'm thinking about it because during the 1940s and 1950s, the political agreement with the United States and Taiwan was not exactly super easy either when you think about it, because there were mistakes. There were mistakes. Really colossal fuck ups, I should say. There's quite a few of them. And I mean, it kind of ties into what's going on now because when it comes to China and Taiwan, it kind of ties into that because a son individual did not fix it up and he took too long, way too fucking. I can't pronounce his goddamn name, but basically, I'm not saying he's the only factor because I mean he's a part of it, a major part of it, but he put a bunch. Basically, the United States president at the time pretty much told the Chinese nationalists to put him back off, even though which is nearly defeated, or nearly. And again, he took too long and just caused an effect when you think about it, and it kind of plays into here. But anyway, folks, I appreciate for watching my long ass video. I mean, these types of videos tend to be extremely long. I mean, very long. I might do like another follow up where I talk about the Japanese and Kevin Swanson or some religious fuck. I might do a follow up video later on if I feel like it. But anyway, that'll be it for now, folks. See ya.